Hey everyone, hi, this is Samrat Kishor again, and I welcome you all to the Baseline Show. We do this every Wednesday at noon time EST, this 6 o'clock in Central Time and 10:30 p.m. in India. So this is a weekly show which we do for as an
This
outreach
is
effort
not in
for Baseline Protocol,
uh,
10:30 p.m. in India. So this is a weekly show which we do for as an
this
outreach
is
effort
not
for Baseline
in
Protocol,
10:30
10:30
p.m.
p.m.
in
in
India.
getting my voice
So
back. Happens all the time. Is it from somebody's side?
Got their YouTube on.
I think it's you, John.
Yeah, because I closed my YouTube. Okay. So I was saying, yeah, this is an outreach effort for the patient protocol, and we do this every week. Where we invite guests uh from various industries where we talk about various use cases of patient protocol potentially where all we will go, and also talk about the various trends in data sharing and multi-party workflows. So welcome you all once again. And Mark, I see you struggle, so I'm going to put you on a spot there.
My what?
Hey, I was seeing you. I saw you struggle with the cat's tail. So yeah, just saying
This
hi
is
to
my
you.
dog, my cat.
Welcome to the studio. Okay, and and yeah, we have the OG Wayfinder John Wolpert with us today. Thank you so much, John, for taking time out for the show today. And what we're going to do today is absolutely amazing and a much needed break from the general talks that we do. Of course, we get very high quality speakers that we do a lot of a lot of crystal ball gazing, etc. Looking into the future. But I think it's extremely important to challenge what we're all evangelizing as a group, which is baseline protocol right now. Um, so yeah, and we could get started with hearing a little about your two but series and the various responses that you've been getting, and how it's received, etc. And how did you come up with the idea? And then we could potentially apply that framework live for the first time ever on baseline protocol.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fun. Good to see everybody. I see Anant, I see Ignacio, I see Charles, I see Mark Haddle, the Ed McMahon of
Yeah, I think
Baseline.
I knew that was coming. Yes.
And the wunderkind of Mark, of Keith, and Sonal. It's nice to see you guys. Yeah, where do we begin?
What is the two-word framework or the two-word rule?
Yeah, so I think many years ago, I used to work for a strategy innovation consulting firm. And one of my colleagues used to say, well, you can always bring, you have to butt the butt. That's the way she said it. Butt the butt. You say, well, but it won't work, but it would have. And that really changed my life. I mean, I think that I've come up with better, more things that can work and gotten through more problems just by, not being afraid of my butt. When you only have a one but policy, you can say, well, don't say but, or don't say it won't work. Don't be negative. Well, that's, I don't know, maybe that's how we do it these days. But I think that means that a lot of companies, a lot of teams are stuck because they're afraid of their butts. And you should be afraid of your butt if you only bring one. But that won't work. Mic drop, you're done, is a momentum killer. As is no butt policy. Oh, that's a great idea, Samrat. Moving on, right? That's kind of the new way of doing it. And so both a no butt policy and a one butt policy are momentum killers. So momentum thinking, which is the boring version of the two butt rule, is all about momentum, right? So you say, well, but it won't work, but it would if. In fact, I think one of my favorite people to do that with is Andreas Freund. right? Because he's not afraid of his butt, right? He's like, but that won't work. And I'm like, but it would if, and then I don't even have to come up with my own second but there. I just tell him to, I'm like, but it would work if, and then he goes, you know what we could do. So that's the simple idea. Turns out I'm on 17,000 words about the two but rule and working on a book. And, you know, yeah, there's just a lot to say because it turns out that simple idea, there's a lot of complexity and nuance to it. It's not just two buts, it's 2 or 4 or 6 or 8. Failure is always on a 1, 3, 5, or 7 but, right? But we could try this, but it didn't work. Done. That's how companies end on the odd numbered but. As long as you bring a second but, you've always got another play. And that's the two but rule. And yeah, as of yesterday, as of this morning, I am a free agent. I am out of blockchain because I am out of butts for blockchain. I was never a crypto guy, as I think everybody knows here. I've never been into tokens. I was offered a lot of tokens and I tried it for maybe a month or two, and I'm just not that guy. So, and then yeah, no kidding. Yesterday, a recruiter for B&B pings me and says, "Hey, we're looking for an executive director of the foundation for B&B coin." And I'm like, "Have you read my stuff?" And he's like, "Yes, that's what you're very outspoken about blockchain." And I'm like, "Yeah, have you read it carefully?" And I pointed him to some stuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's probably not a good fit." And I'm like, I don't know what
yeah, it's a difference between reading the resignation versus reading the posts.
All press is good press, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Definitely having these Appleccino moments. I've taken 6 calls since Monday from companies that are reading my stuff and then go, "Can you help us with our blockchain?" I'm like, "You're not reading carefully." So
details are in the fine print.
yeah, no, I think everybody. So I don't know what I think mental models are hard to break through. So no, I didn't like. I love the people involved with all the projects that have tokens that have been swarming around the baseline stuff. But I've always said that my favorite thing about baselining is that it has no token, and that it has no blockchain. That's great. So I'm glad that you guys are. It's less sexy. It's less probably hard to get funded. But probably not 5 years from now when the crypto economy is imploded and we are all kind of experiencing the hangover of that. And I do believe that will happen. I think that Bitcoin and the like are BitTorrent for money. I think that's where it ultimately goes. I think it goes to people who, and there are some people who need to move large fistfuls of money across borders with pseudo impunity. Are always going to need a thing like this. Certainly after FATCA made it hard to move bearer bonds or Swiss bearer bonds around. So when you got rid of that, there needed to be something else, and nature abhors a vacuum. So Bitcoin and other tokens turn out to be good ways for moneylanders. By the way, it's a good book, Moneyland. Interesting book. Can't unsee the fact that FATCA came up right along the same timeline as Bitcoin's coming up. So yeah, if you need to launder money, definitely crypto. And otherwise, I think you can't kill it, just like you can't kill BitTorrent, but most people don't use it. That's my point of view at this point. I say this boldly so that people will stop calling me asking me to do blockchain jobs.
Okay, interesting. That's a fresh perspective, John, and we're seeing you in a different light today.
Yeah. I tried one last thing. with the crazy NFT thing. I still think it's a pretty idea what Tree Trunk was all about. But again, it was on a blockchain. It was still, even though it tried to get away from the idea of speculation, NFTs are fundamentally about speculation. And when we tried to unstupid NFTs, you discovered that NFTs work on the stupid. If you take the stupid sauce out, you don't have it falls apart.
I would say you're probably having the same thing going on with all these metaverse, pushes or projects or whatever, and they're ignoring the fundamentals of identity and medium of exchange. They want to talk about, hey, we have this virtual theme park, and we have this or this virtual environment to where let's get serious about it. Companies can use it for prototyping and digital twin and digital thread within, collaborating across, larger distances and stuff. And I'm like, well, what are you doing about identity? And what is going to be the coin of the realm? And I cannot get a straight answer from anybody about it. And, everybody says, but we have this virtual space and people can come in and interact in a shared computer environment. They can maybe rent a video, or they can, order food online and stuff in this virtual world. And I'm like, so you're like a kid with an ant farm, really. So, I'm seeing a lot of that kind of stupid and insanity, that kind of went around that too.
Yeah. It's it's good to kind of touch base on where it's all gone since then. I mean, I think that what you guys are doing is great. I saw the update. I saw the the new TSC group. I'm glad that all the OGs, or I guess the original folks, myself, Brody, York, others, have stepped back, and it's still going, and I think going better. I think it's flourishing better, because you don't have, people sucking all the oxygen out of the room, right? And people are coming up with their own ideas. I think that's great. So that's kind of why I haven't been, actively. I've just been kind of sitting back watching what you guys have been doing, and that's why, because I think I want to see that continue. I like what just came out. I like the project that came out. Seems like SAP is doing really interesting things, and we got the tokens out of it, right? Somehow, I don't know how we got overrun by tokens. I love the teams involved, but I don't know how we got overrun by tokens. It was never about that. Again, people just don't listen. And it's not like I wasn't shy about saying, "Hey, I don't want to talk about your tokens," but they're like, "You're so based about that," and I'm like, "You're not listening." Yeah, I don't know.
I agree. I think, it's interesting. It's on the way you put it. Okay, so maybe we could pick up the two-word framework back and hear some examples that you've come across very recently. Any scenarios you can walk us through of two words? And and the best one would be when you land back on some classic buts.
So baselining is the ultimate in two-but rule, right? But blockchains don't scale. But they're a digital nudist colony. But you can just go through the list of buts, and I think I just put out an article about several of them on johnwolpert.substack.com, and in that, so the chain of buts, right? There's just many buts, but this doesn't work, but that doesn't work. One of the things I really like about Vitalik, I mean, whenever I lost faith over the years about blockchain and just don't get it anymore, I'm just not seeing it. Vitalik is great, the Ethereum guy, because he actually oddly is not afraid of his butt. He is very straightforward about what we can't do, what he doesn't know how to solve, what nobody knows how to solve. And that kind of honesty is really refreshing. So it's funny, like I buy in more into blockchain when he says what he does, which is, but this doesn't work. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm back in. I'm good now. You know, if everybody did that, if everybody said, yeah, no, replicated singletons that require consensus don't scale. Full stop, right? Yeah, they don't. If we,
Yeah.
all agree to that. Instead, what I see is, everybody saying we scale infinitely, even Ethereum. Now, I was like, we're going to have 100,000 TPS. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're not
I
going
think
to
he
have
was
that.
the first one to call it
Start,
out, right? Yeah, he was the first one to call it out that it's not going to scale to that level ever. and
well,
and for
it
himself,
will. No, you can scale to that level if you but if you dig under the caveats of what it means to do that, the things that people assume, oh, it's, I have a supercharged singleton that is going to give me 10,000 or 100,000 transactions a second. No, can't handle those kinds of reads and writes unless you can on a single CPU. But not a massively distributed system, right? So obviously people bring up Visa. Oh, we get 12,500 transactions a second. They don't do that. They've got a whole bunch of machines that work together and then, that are doing, transactions. And then I think they batch twice a day. Right? So that's not 12,500 transactions a second. Exactly. Right. So there are caveats. And we tend not to tell people about the caveats. I don't know, Keith, what do you think? I mean, is that right?
Sounds right to me. You can't tell them about the caveats.
Yeah, they run away.
yeah, I think his statement, that the one that you're just referring to, I think it came at a time when there was a lot of euphoria around it. People were just getting started on investing on blockchain, right? Multi-millions growing in innovation funds at that time.
Yeah, people know where their bread's buttered, right? I mean, it's funny, the people that are a little upset with me right now aren't the crypto guys or any of those dudes, even the NFT people. It's people who make money in companies selling blockchain projects. They're not happy with what I'm saying. It's funny, right? So I think that's the interesting thing is the folks that are all in on the crypto thing, they're just buying their Lambos and they're, hey, dude, you're based, you're telling the truth, but it doesn't matter because we're making our money. But the guys that are, trying to sell projects are like, wait, shut up. Need the gravy train and keep going.
So we have a prompt in chat for you to but John from our Jack Gilchrist, baseline core dev and active
Jack.
contributor. Yes. Hello, Jack. Thanks for sending this in. So he said, CCSMs might help companies to detect problems in their supply chains, but it's in their own interest to turn a blind eye. But
okay, so let's unpack it. So CCSMs, consensus controlled state machines in the baseline parlance, or a common frame of reference is what I always like to call it. Some machine that you're dropping proofs on, basically, right? Might help companies to detect problems in their supply chains, but it's in their own interest to turn a blind eye. So we got to break it out. So first of all, what problems are we detecting with this method? And because it's a little general, right? So detect what kinds of problems and how is it that we detect them using a baseline approach. And then, but it's in their own interest. So I think that's whatever those details of that are getting into. Yeah, an assertion is that it's in their own interest not to detect the problems. So we'd have to unpack some specific cases of that. But I think Jack's probably going to have a hard time being real time with us on that. So it'd be great if you could jump on the live stream here so that we could talk to him direct. So a problem actually, don't we have some supply chain geniuses in here, Charles? Anant, you guys do this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I have
What's a particular problem that can be detected with CCSMs and proofs?
well, in a word, it's principal agent issues, right? So principal agent issues. I mean, in organizational literature, business literature, it refers to how you have contractual chains. I mean, you see these issues everywhere in politics and so on as well. Essentially, if you have a company, for instance, right, the shareholders essentially have a bunch of executives to run the company for them, right? So basically, the shareholders are the principals and the management are the agents, but the agents have their own incentives. I mean, they have their own reasons for doing what they do that might not align with the interest of shareholders. Now let's take this to supply chains and project organizations, right? Comprised of a whole bunch of companies. Now these companies, the technical term, that is used in a lot of literature is meta organization. So organizations comprised of multiple independent companies, right? Each one of who has their own interest. So if you're a supplier to a project or a supply chain, I mean, you're always incentivized to quote the lowest cost to get the project or the contract. At the same time, you're incentivized to make the most out of it, right? So there is a systematic incentive to misstate or to hide information, to not share, things to other parties. Companies also have like this, this kind of like inbuilt reluctance to share any data per se, right? So,
but let's pick absolutely. I think that's the crux of Jack's point, right? And I saw that in friends of mine that continued with IBM, saw that with projects on TradeLens and Walmart. And I remember saying to, what was his name? Bob Wolpert, namesake, not related. He was running Walmart at the time, or the Walmart Food Trust thing. He's like, well, we want transparency. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't want transparency. You don't want everybody to know where all the food is. What you want is the right people to know at the right time for the right reasons, and for them to not know when it's no longer the right time. Here's Jack. So yeah, I think that the question is, what is a specific case of where you might detect a problem, and in a particular one where it turns out that the counterparties don't want you to detect the problem. Hey, Jack, you got thoughts on that? Like, what's a specific case?
well, I mean, yeah, carry on. Sorry.
So I might have missed like the last 30 seconds, but kind of like what you were saying, either where you detect someone else. I guess when you detect someone else violating something, you would want to report that. So I don't know, let's say you detect something like there's a fault in your like, I don't know, you've got a refrigerated truck or something and it starts venting air, and it's something that technically should not be sold anymore, but like that it's not actually like people aren't going to notice something like that, where it's in your interest to just let that go unnoticed. But if you were to put it on something where you're posting zero knowledge proofs of the IoT sensor, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to sell this bad product.
That's a great example. That's a great example. Thank you for that. So, yeah, we want transparency and we want data integrity, but we don't. Right? But we could if, and this is where, so let me go into some nuances about the 2-but rule. The most important one, and there's an article called Fuzzy Butts about Elon Musk, which I thought was hilarious. Sometimes, so the scary thing about the 2-but rule is that you've got to commit to saying, well, but it would work if, and you might not have a good idea. The release valve for that is you can always punt to a silly idea or a fuzzy one. So fuzzing up the problem can sometimes help. And ultimately, this is a true story. One time I was prompting some engineers and MBAs, and an engineer MBA said, what if we did this? And the engineer went, but that won't work. I said, but it would work if, and he said, well, it would work if gravity was different. And another engineer, no kidding, went, wait a minute. What if we did that? You know, it obviously didn't fix gravity, but it just changed the context of the problem and made for an interesting journey, which actually, you know, I think got a patent filing, maybe not got the patent, but the filing went in. Not that patents are the be all and end all of innovation, but it was something. Anyway, so in this case, we want to share, but we can't share, right? And by the way, this is probably the problem that most interests me in my life. It's, if you go way back, I wrote in the Harvard Business Review about it years ago, and spent tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money in Australia and the UK, trying to find ways of sharing without sharing. In fact, I'm really interested in the Mongo announcement about fully encrypted search. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's quite interesting. They're not using homomorphic, at least they don't say they aren't, and I haven't looked at the code, but I find it quite interesting to, you know, to be able to say we can do searches on our respective databases without exposing the data to each other. Right, that's pretty cool, and without exposing the search parameters to the counterpart. So that, I mean, that's just crazy. So if you can find matches along some kind of vector, that I think that'd be pretty interesting. So, but what if you could, in the case of we need to share this information, but we don't want to share it, we could all agree that that all of that only the aggregate is communicated. So it's not, so you kind of fuzz it up, you take it up and say, this particular, you know, we're not going to register each particular violation, but we're going to generalize so that if it, you know, so and we can say, well, we want to know what the overall health of the products are, and we want to be able to know, we want to be able to track the thing that made you sick. So only under those conditions would a search on that particular fail occur. I wrote years ago, I wrote an article about, I don't know that we published it because everybody was scared of it. It was about gun safety. It was about guns. And I wrote a product review from the near future called Gun Rack, I think is what we called it. And nobody wanted to publish it because they were all scared of, you know, the gun story. But I'm like, you know, but there are people, you may agree with them or disagree with them, that don't want their guns registered so that the government can know that they've got them. And it turns out that a gun that is lost to the possession of the legal owner, that the statistic on this was crazy. It was like a 1 in 5 chance of it being within 2 years involved in a crime. Right. So we want that to go down, but we don't want to have a trackable, traceable gun registry. Right. Or some people don't. So if you assume that they have a right to that point of view, whether you agree with it or not, and I have no position on it, you could say, well, but we could have a personal data vault. Now, I think I wrote this before the whole zero knowledge thing, but you know, you could have a personal data vault where only you basically have a one-time pad where only if the gun is lost to your possession would it you could, and it was involved in a crime, it would be a search. And I'm kind of overgeneralizing. It's pretty cool. Of course, the problem is getting people, but people wouldn't believe that the app that you gave them was really not, wasn't doing something under the covers. So you'd have to, there's another but there. How do you get people to really trust that only they have their data under their own control, right? And the rule was, if you can trade it, you can give it to your kid, you can give it to your cousin, you can move it around, you can go to a gun show, whatever. And you can move it with impunity very quickly, click, click. So you don't have to do all sorts of paperwork, which is was the benefit of it. But if you didn't do that, if you gave it to somebody and didn't do the switch, then, and it wound up in a crime, there's a law called, I can't remember the name of the law, but it basically, it's the same law that they're using to prosecute that guy that got the guns for the terrorists in LA a few years ago. And it's like $250,000 per violation. So if your gun shows, and you'd be able to be found that only that way. So it's not dissimilar to this. You'd say, well, we all agree as a policy that we want compliance. We want people using the common system. We want everybody to comply with the food tracing or the supply chain system. But they don't want to, they want to have to get nabbed every single time that there's, a kind of a gray area violation. Well, if everybody can admit to that, you can write a different policy that says, we're not going to nab you, but if somebody gets sick and there's an incident, we can do a one-time search.
Awesome thoughts, John. John, there's this whole, when we talk about 2 months, the first thought which comes to mind is, are these 2 months coming from the same person?
Yeah, the best way to do the 2-but policy is to insist that, what you really want to do is make it safe for people to have ideas and for people to challenge those ideas without losing momentum. So if you don't make it safe to challenge it, what you wind up is, hey, great idea, and no more momentum. If you make it unsafe to, or if the butt heads, right? If the 1-but guy is in control and says butt a lot, then it makes it unsafe to have the idea to begin with. So the best policy is for a person to say, but it won't work, and require them also then to say, but it would even if it's silly. It's as simple as that. You wouldn't think that would be something that people needed desperately, but I find it's desperately needed all the time. I was on a call with a company that asked me to help them in this way yesterday. And I said, okay, what do you intend to do? And the CEO started just listing off why they're awesome. And I stopped and I said, this is not the make you feel good session. This is the embrace your butt session. So tell me what is, took his first claim and said, if I was this other company, why would I say, but this is a problem, or isn't true, or isn't good, or what's underneath it? How would I take it apart? He's like, well, it was getting defensive. I said, don't, embrace your butt. What would this? And we got into it, and there were some really good things that he in fact knew how to destroy, to make very destructive claims against his own claim. He knew exactly what the weaknesses were. And once we made it safe for him to articulate those, then we went, but we can. And about 5 rounds into that, came up with a really, really good way of just on that one vector of just taking the product and the way it's being communicated to a whole new level. And I don't want to be more specific than that for obvious reasons, but it was a fun moment. At the end, I said, okay, well, I don't usually do the would you question, but given that we've already done this, what would you have paid for that? He said, I'd have paid you $40,000 for that. That's okay. So that was interesting. It's kind of like a roller coaster. It's when you get on it, it's a little bit thrilling to require the second but, and you're like, I don't know, I don't have one. Oh, I do have one. You always do. You always have a second but. That said, I'm struggling to find my second but in blockchain. I thought I did. I was like, well, I'll try this one last thing, and maybe it's my final but. No, at the end of the day, I think baseline is the closest second but I ever got, which was, but it doesn't scale, but it's nudist colony, but you can use it basically as an ordering and hash management service. Leave the data where it is. Does that work? But that doesn't work for moving fistfuls of money around and money laundering. No, it sure doesn't. But I don't care.
Yeah.
At the end, that's my final
Yeah.
but, right? At some point, you do have to, you're out of buts, and you have to say, well, but I don't care, or but I don't have any more buts. I'm going to try it anyway. But I'm done. And in this case, I'm not interested in cryptocurrency. I'm not interested in tokens, the way they're run. But you know what I'd be quite interested in is what I wrote about years ago in ICGO on Medium. If you look me up in ICGO, it's kind of aging because it was written during the ICO time. But when I look back, I'm like, well, that is the one thing I would be. But you could create fully registered, fully boldly, proudly securitized assets on a blockchain. In fact, blockchain has nice properties for that, because you don't want for there to be that much opacity. You want to be able to know who owns the stock of a company or an organization, right? But you don't want grandma to get fleeced. But trying not to get grandma not to get fleeced, you wind up with all this overhead in terms of compliance and that stuff, and that sucks. But what if we created a TSA pre-check for grandma and anybody else of any accreditation level, right? $999,000 grandma and $1 million and one grandma, and they can all register, and we agree on a means test of some type, and so you could be a kid in any country with hardly any money, but yeah, you can gamble $1 a year on, or $10 or $100 or $1,000 on startups. You should be able to get exposed to high risk startups. Absolutely, you should. Anybody should. You shouldn't. We just don't want you to lose all your money. Accredited grandma also shouldn't lose all her money, right? Even though she can, even though you can raise money from her, right? So why not have something where government says, yeah, you can, if you want to raise money quickly, here, do it on this rails. And I laid out how to do this so that it would be contained, so that you would not be able to break out of the system. You say, if you raise through that, you can use Title III of the Jobs Act to raise a lot more money than crowdfunding does today, and you can do it quickly, easily, safely. And even if you're a bad guy, and even if you run off with the money, grandma did not lose it all. I love that idea. I'd love to see the SEC take up that kind like smart. Obama said, right? Smart regulation. Smart regulation.
Yeah.
Let's, it used to be, it was two hours to go to the DMV in California when I was, for any, now it's a website. It's fine, right? We didn't change laws. We just made it easy to comply with them. Let's do that for securities. And then, blockchain has a real role there. Aside from money laundering, putting, it's like global Carta. It's where you would want to list your stuff. And maybe we should make it so that you don't get tied up in seeking a liquidity event. I get my equity, and I can spend my equity. I can give it to other people. I can sell it. That's a policy. There's a reason why that is not a policy right now for most stock issuances. But maybe we could make it such a policy if, if we had a regime like the IC-Go idea. So I think, a future where everybody's issuing their common and their preferred stock on blockchains.
Yeah.
So even though I'm out of butts, I'm not really out of butts, right? There is base